Hello viewers, welcome to K Diagnostics. Dio here. Today we have a 2001 Toyota Highlander with a 2.4 liter. The complaint on this vehicle is there is an oil leak around the top of the engine. I already looked at this vehicle. I have determined that the valve cover gasket is worn out. So there's a leak between the valve cover and the cylinder head. So the valve cover gasket is worn out, so it's allowing oil to leak between the valve cover and the cylinder head. So this is going to be a how-to video. I'm going to show you how to remove and replace a valve cover gasket on this Toyota Highlander. So I'm going to bring you here under the hood so I can show you where the oil is leaking from, and then we will replace this valve cover gasket. So now let's do that. So we are here under the hood. So our leak is at this area right here. So this up here is the valve cover, and this here is the cylinder head, and as you can see it's wet over here. I hope you can see that. So there's an oil leak, and eventually oil leaks past the gasket and it falls on the exhaust manifold, and it's actually causing a burnt oil smell go inside the vehicle. Okay, so basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna remove the engine cover first. Once we remove the engine cover, then we will remove the coils. We're gonna remove the coils, and then we will remove all the bolts around the valve cover, and then the valve cover will come out. Okay, so this job is pretty straightforward and pretty easy. Now let's remove the engine cover. So I'm gonna remove this nut over here. So now the engine cover should come out. Actually, there are two nuts that hold the engine cover in place, but this one was missing, so there was only one nut. So now we can lift the engine cover. So we're gonna get it out of the way. All right, so we got the engine cover removed. So now we're gonna remove the ignition coils. So we're gonna disconnect the electrical connector of the coil. So we're gonna push this tab down and then pull the connector back. So right there. We're gonna do the same thing here. All right, so we got the electrical connector. The electrical connector is disconnected. So now we can just push this out of the way. All these connectors can just be pushed back. So now we're gonna remove these 10mm bolts so we can remove the ignition coils. And these bolts are all the same, so it doesn't really matter which one goes where. So now we're gonna start pulling these coils out. And I don't know if you can see, let me show you this coil. You see this? So this coil is wet, okay? So oil on the ignition coil. So the spark plug tube seals are worn out, so they are allowing oil to leak past the spark plug tube, and then oil is getting inside the spark plug hole, which is getting these ignition coils wet. Okay, so this is not good. I did get the valve cover gasket kit, so it came with spark plug tube seals. So when we replace the valve cover gasket, we're also gonna remove and replace the spark plug tube seals. So let's remove the last one. So right here, even this one is wet. Okay, so this is oil right here. Okay, so these spark plug tube seals are bad also. Okay, all right, so let's put the last coil up there. So now we're gonna disconnect these PCV tubes. So we're gonna disconnect this one. We're just gonna push this back right there. We're gonna push it out of the way. Now we're gonna disconnect this one over here. Same thing, just push it back, put it right there out of the way. So now we're gonna undo this 10mm bolt and then this other 10mm bolt over here that holds this harness on the valve cover, and then we're gonna undo the valve cover bolt. Okay, so the valve cover has one nut over here. There's this bolt, this one, and then there's another one at this corner, and then there's one over here and then one back here. So basically all the bolts around the valve cover. Okay, and then we have two more over here in the center. So these two 10mm bolts. Okay, so we got this one, that one, and then we have one back here. There's another one over here, and then there's another one at this corner over here. I hope I can show it to you. So it's right there. Okay, that bolt also has to come out. So we're gonna remove all the bolts around the valve cover, and then the valve cover will come out. Okay, so now let's do that. So the long ones go over here in the center. Okay, so we removed all the bolts that hold the valve cover down. So now the valve cover should be able to come out. So we're just gonna rock it a little bit. Let's see, maybe I forgot one bolt. Oh, there's one over here that I forgot. Let me show it to you. There's this one over here at this corner that I forgot. So this one over here. Okay, so after removing this one, our valve cover should be able to come out now. So at this point, we're just gonna lift the valve cover. All right, so here comes the valve cover. So now let's take this to the bench. As you can see, the valve cover has been removed. So what I'm gonna do off camera is I'm going to clean this gasket surface around the cylinder head so that the new gasket can sit properly on the cylinder head. Okay, so I'm gonna clean this off camera, and then I will bring you guys back up so that we can install the valve cover. Okay, so I'm gonna clean this surface. I'm also gonna clean the spark plug tube seal surface. So let's see over here in the spark plug tubes. I don't know if you can see in there, but right there there's oil inside the spark plug tube. Okay, so these seals were definitely leaking. I mean, the seals were allowing oil to leak inside the spark plug tube. I hope you guys can see the oil in there. Okay, let me get this sharp towel inside this tube so I can show you. So watch this. I mean, I don't know if it went all the way down. You see how wet this got? You see that? So this is oil that was inside that spark plug tube. Okay, so I'm gonna clean all of this, and then we're gonna install our new valve cover gasket on the valve cover, and then we will reinstall the valve cover. So now let's go to the bench and prep the valve cover. Alright guys, so now we're gonna prep our valve cover. So here is the valve cover gasket kit, and that's the part number right there, VS50530R. Okay, that's the part number. So we're gonna get the old gasket removed first. So we're just gonna put it right here. Now we're gonna clean the gasket groove on the valve cover. We have to make sure that the gasket groove is clean before we install the new gasket. Alright, so we cleaned the gasket groove. So now we're gonna install the new gasket. I don't know if you guys will be able to tell, but this gasket is definitely worn out. Okay, it's so thin, so it's worn out. So we're gonna put this in the trash. So now we're gonna get our new gasket out of the box. Alright, so here's our new gasket. It's blue, just like the one we removed. So our gasket is gonna go in this way. Okay, pretty straightforward, easy peasy. Now, once you make sure that the gasket is lined up, you need to press it down and make sure that the gasket is sitting well on its groove. Okay, you want to make sure that the gasket is sealing well on its groove. Otherwise, when you lift the valve cover, the gasket is gonna fall, okay? Because you don't want the gasket to fall while you're installing the valve cover on the vehicle, because you want it to be seated properly. Because if the gasket is not seated properly, once you install it, it can come out a little bit and allow oil to leak, okay? Because we don't want any leaks around the valve cover area, just around the engine in general, okay? So right here, as you can see, we have installed our new valve cover gasket on the valve cover. So now let's take this valve cover to the vehicle so we can reinstall it. So I cleaned the mating surface on the cylinder head. So now we're gonna install our valve cover. So we have to make sure that our gasket is in place. So our valve cover is gonna go in this way. Now we have to make sure that our gasket is sitting. Okay, so the gasket is there. So we're good. So now we're gonna start putting the bolts back on. So the long bolts will go in the center. Alright, so we're gonna get these bolts nice and snug, and then we will torque them down. Now ideally you want to crisscross these bolts because you want the gaskets to be tightened evenly. Alright, so I'm gonna grab a torque wrench so we can torque down these bolts. So now we're gonna torque the bolts for the valve cover. All the bolts on the outside of the valve cover will be torqued down to 97 inch-pound. Okay, so all these 10mm bolts on the outside, we're gonna torque them down to 97 inch-pound, and then the ones on the inside, we will torque them down to 120 inch-pound. Okay, not foot-pound, but inch-pound. So I'm gonna start with this one first. So I hope you can hear that. So that's good. So now we're gonna do the one back here. Okay. Now I'm gonna go up to 120 inch-pound so that we can torque these two over here, because the rest of them is 97 7 inch-pound and these two is 120 inch-pound. After we torque these, and then we will reinstall our ignition coils and then the engine cover. So now let's do that. Alright, so all the bolts are tightened. So now we're gonna reinstall the ignition coils. Before we install the ignition coils, we're gonna blow off any oil residue that we have inside the spark plug tubes. So look at that. That's no bueno. So now we're gonna start reinstalling our ignition coils. So we're gonna reconnect our electrical connectors. Now we're gonna tighten the coil bolt. Now we're gonna reconnect this PCV tube. Okay, so this one is connected. So now we're gonna connect the second one back here. Okay, so that's connected. So we are making progress. Alright, so what's next? Well, we are down to the last step. The last step is reinstalling the engine cover. So we're gonna install the engine cover. Alright, so we're done. So now we're gonna check our oil level. We're gonna check the engine oil level to see if we have enough oil in the engine, because the customer told me that she had to add the oil. So the oil level is good. So now I'm gonna go inside the vehicle and start the engine. Alright guys, as you guys can hear, the engine is running. So we're gonna look around the valve cover to see if we have any leaks. So everything looks good, nice and dry. So we don't have any leaks around the valve cover. So we're good to go. I'm gonna go inside the vehicle and turn off the engine so we can wrap up this video. Alright guys, so that's it. We have fixed the oil leak on this vehicle, by replacing the valve cover gasket. So this is how you remove and replace a valve cover gasket on this 2001 Toyota Highlander with a 2.4 liter. I hope you like the video. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't like the video, give it a thumb down. But if you do, you gotta tell me why so we can make better videos in the future. If this is your first time here, subscribe to the channel. Ring the bell so you can get notified every time I upload a new video. If you have any comments, questions, criticism, leave them in the comment box. Thanks for watching. See you next time.